Okay, so we're going to start on our back. This class is primarily going to be for the hips. So I'm hoping by the end we'll feel just a little bit more strengthened mobility in the hips and pelvis. And so when you're ready, come onto your back. We're going to put the blanket right underneath the back of the pelvis, so that the edge of the blanket is right below the bottom ribs, right? So that my pelvis and my low back is being supported by the blanket and the floor. And then once you're there, bend your knees, bring your feet just a little bit wider than your hips, and then rest your knees together. And let your arms rest on the ground. And we'll just take a few moments here to let ourselves settle. To let yourself drop and land. And let go. So that we very gradually come to a place of stillness and resting. So much of our day is being pulled outside of ourselves into the rhythms of the world around us, the busyness, the fast pace of our culture. And we forget to slow down and pay attention to our own natural rhythms. And in this place of stillness and resting can come some real, I think, healing. Coming home to ourselves. So take as long as you need here to settle in. And then when you're ready to begin to move, if you could lift your feet off the ground, draw your knees in towards you like little boat pose, crossing the right ankle over the left, and then taking hold of your knees and circling the knees in one direction. Pick one direction and circle the knees so that you're rolling the weight around through the back of the pelvis, kind of the outer edge of the pelvis. So you'll cross through one buttock and down towards the tailbone, and then across through the other buttock, and then through the top of the pelvis. So you're making this circular movement. Go. Good. And then just taking in how that feels. It's kind of like a little massage there at the back. So there might be places where there's a little more tension or tightness. So taking your time as you move through those areas. And then finding center, crossing your left ankle over your right and going in the other direction. So moving through the same territory, but going in the other direction. So pressing a little bit of weight down into the back of the pelvis through the glutes, towards the tailbone, and up across the top of the pelvis where the top of the sacrum and the low back is. These are areas that we tend to get discomfort, some compression from sitting. So just doing this could feel really nice here for the low back and pelvis. Okay, and then coming back to center and bringing your feet back to the floor, resting your arms at your sides. And we're going to do something here I think is really interesting. It's subtle. We're not going to go anywhere, but there's actually quite a bit of effort being made. And I'd like you to imagine that your feet are being magnetically pulled down into the earth. So that it's impossible to lift your feet up off the ground. So the feet are being pulled down into the earth, and I'd like you to try lifting just the right foot off the floor. So it's not going to lift. We're imagining it's stuck there, but notice what muscles activate to try and lift the foot. Yeah. I'd like you to see if the shoulders and the head can relax, but really allow the glutes and the hip flexors, the abdominals, the quads come on board here. And then take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax. Relax all of those areas. Notice what lets go. Okay, we're going to do this again. So just the right foot. See if you can get that right foot unstuck, unglued from the floor, and notice what happens. All the sensations, the effort in the hip and in the leg. And then relax and let go, soften. One more time on this side. Yeah, so in my experience, there's also effort happening in the inner thigh, in the outer thigh, outer hip, hip flexor, quad, even the hamstring here is engaged. And then relax, drop, release. Okay, we'll do the other side. Let's just swish the legs a little side to side first, just to recognize that we're in fact not stuck to the ground, that we do have this option to move. And then come back to center. Left foot now is magnetically drawn down into the earth, and we're going to see if we can lift that left foot. Keep going, keep lifting, lifting, lifting. And then take a deep breath in, exhale, and relax, relax. Okay, and once again, lifting, lifting, lifting. Shoulders dropping, jaw relaxed. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Okay, one more time on this side. Go ahead, left foot. And relax. Great, and then just sweeping the legs a little side to side. And yeah, I think that is a really interesting strengthening practice without really going anywhere. It's not like we're walking or jumping or anything, but we're seeing what muscles in the body need to work for that action to happen. So this time, we're going to let the left foot lift, so no magnetic pull. We've taken that out. And we're going to let the right, let's lift the right foot off the floor, just hover it there. And on an inhale, we're going to stretch that leg straight away from us, lengthening out through the pelvis, opening the back of the knee, flexing the foot. Then finding an exhale and drawing that knee back in, letting the foot continue to hover over the floor. So we're not going to let it rest down. And we're going to do that a few times. So stretching that leg out nice and long, let it hover, keeping the spine relaxed and long, and then exhaling, sliding that leg through the air back, hovering, and again, stretching it out, lengthening through the sides of the leg as well as through the back of the leg, and then exhaling and sliding it back in. Let's do that one more time. And by now you're probably feeling some heat, maybe a little fatigue happening at the front of that right hip. These are your hip flexors. Very good. Drawing the knee in and then resting the foot down. Pausing, noticing. It's always interesting to notice what happens in the transitions, right? How that feels for you on that side. So then let's go to the left side, left foot lifts, hovering. And then inhale, breath comes in, expanding, lengthening that left leg away. And then exhale and draw it back. Yeah. And let's do that a few times more on this side. Nice, slow, thoughtful movements to be really with your experience and to notice what's happening. We can be really entertained and amused, right, by the body. And then bringing that foot to the floor, relax, and let's switch the legs a little side to side. Yeah. Okay, from here, I'd like us to roll onto our right side. We're going to stay there, and you might even keep your blanket there underneath your hip. And yeah, again, just let me know if you are having trouble hearing me or seeing me. We're going to stack the hips, stack the knees, stack the feet, draw the soles of the feet in line with your tailbone. Okay, and bring your left hand onto your upper hip, your top hip there. And we're going to use that hand to help guide that left hip down towards the feet so that the left waist keeps nice and long. Otherwise, sometimes what happens is that hip falls into, kind of spills into the waist, and I end up in a side bend in my spine rather than an elongated neutral spine. Okay, so we want that elongated neutral spine here. Then I'm going to lift that left leg away from the bottom leg. And on an exhale, tuck the knee in as close to my chest as I can. And then inhale and press that foot away. So I'm straightening my leg. And I'm going to do this 4 more times. So tuck in and then straighten that leg. And I'm straightening that leg diagonally. I'm not stretching it towards the bottom of my mat, and I'm not stretching it straight in front of me. It's somewhere in between. Yeah. Great. So feeling the hinges here of the hip and the knee as you keep that leg elevated. So there's some good strengthening happening here in the outer hip. Okay. Then we're going to take that leg straight and reach it down the mat, still hovering about the height of your hip. Yeah. And we're going to lift the leg a few inches higher than the hip and then lower it back to the height of the hip. Lifting and dropping without allowing the pelvis to move, right? So I could swing my hip, my whole pelvis to lift my leg, but I'm keeping that top hip reaching down towards the feet as I lift and lower. These are your abductors. Okay, pause there and circle the whole leg. Go around one direction 5 times, like you're drawing circles with your heel. Pause, go the other direction 5 times. And if any of this is too much, know to come out when you need to. Great. Pause, bend the knee. We're going to do this thigh stretch that we do on our side. If you can't take hold of your ankle here, or if taking hold of your ankle puts extra pressure, compression in your knee, you're going to use your tie for this. You can just loop your tie around your ankle. Good. And for the most effective stretch, we're going to press the thigh back behind us, yeah, while at the same time drawing the belly button in. So hugging your belly button in towards your spine as the thigh presses back. And we pause and we are patient. Because it takes a while for these muscles to begin to release. So you can stay here for as long as you need to. It's a good one. All right, and then when you're finished, release that leg. You could release the tie if you're using a tie. Good. And we're going to do the other side. You could either roll right on your back onto your left side, or use your arms, your hands to press yourself up. And then come on over to the left side. Yep, stack the hips, stack the knees, stack the feet. My feet are in line with my tailbone. And my right hand is on my hip. I'm going to encourage that hip to press down towards my feet, keeping the hip there. Yeah. Floating the right leg away from the bottom leg. And then exhale, tuck the knee in, inhale, and straighten that leg. Yeah. And it's on an angle, so I'm not stretching the leg straight out in front or down my mat. It's on an angle. In fact, my thighs are sort of, my upper thigh, my lower thigh are in line with each other. And breathing, contracting in as you exhale, and expanding, lengthening out as you inhale. A good one here for these outer hip muscles. So I did this for my class yesterday. This morning I got up and I could feel, you know, after you've worked the muscles, after like a workout, I could feel my muscles. It felt so good. And my sacrum, the sacrum at the back of the pelvis felt really good. It was kind of humming. Sometimes it's cranky. So I think that these practices really helped create stability there in the sacroiliac joints. Okay, so then straighten that leg out like you're in mountain pose through the right side of the body. And lifting and lowering. Lifting and lowering. And I'm pressing out through my heel rather than pointing my toes. And that just creates a little bit of a stretch there in the back of the ankle and the calf while I do this. You're welcome to experiment how it feels, right? To either point the toes or flex the foot. So about 5 of those, and then pause, and then this is the one that's kind of tough right after all of that work, and we're going to circle the leg with some control, so we're not using the whole upper body to turn the leg. And then the other direction, we're almost done. Almost done. One more circle. Great. And then bend the knee. Catch hold of your ankle. Use your thigh if you need to. The thigh is pressing back, which causes the whole front body to kind of want to pop forward, right? We go into a big back bend. So bring your belly in, bring your front ribs in, and keep pressing the thigh back. And then we wait patiently. And breathe. And notice. So interesting to feel these sensations in the body that we often overlook or we don't want them. So we try to push them away, get rid of them, right? And it's our body's way of communicating with us. So our practice is to help us learn the body's language. Then gently releasing. Good, and just noticing how that feels. Okay. From here, we're going to come onto our belly. So again, nice to have the blanket there underneath the front of the pelvis. And we're going to come onto our belly and reach our arms forward and come up onto the fingertips. And I always feel like, I don't know, a zombie or something when I'm doing this. But I'm going to crawl my arms forward and let my rib cage kind of crawl forward as well, away from the pelvis. Like I could drag my ribs away from my pelvis so that I create some length in my spine. Yeah. And then once I've gone as far as I can go, I'm going to rest my forehead on the back of my forearms and just pause there and feel the stretch and length in my spine. If coming onto your belly is causing discomfort in your low back, you could also put a cushion underneath your pelvis. So instead of a blanket, you might need a little bit more height, and that could take out some of the compression there in the low back. Okay, so from here, locate the front of your pelvis, so the pubic bone, and we're going to press the pubic bone down into the blanket, into the floor. Yeah. And you'll notice, perhaps, when you do that, your tailbone kind of stretches down towards the heels, and you create just a little bit more space in the low back. So keep that happening. So pubic bone presses down, low back lengthens, and we're going to lift the right leg and point the toes this time. Lift the right leg and hold it there for 5 breaths. So this is glutes and hamstrings working. And it's not so much about how high you're lifting your leg, it's about lengthening and holding that leg here above the ground. Let the head and neck and shoulders relax. After your 5th exhale, let's lower that leg down. Release the pelvis, give it a little wiggle side to side. Okay, and then we'll go to the other side. So a lot of our moves tonight are subtle, but I think deep and effective. So we're going to press down through the pubic bone, lengthen the tailbone, and then lift that left leg. Just a little lengthening as you lift and breathe. One more nice deep breath. And then release. Let it drop. Wiggle the hips. Coming up now onto your elbows into Sphinx pose. Okay, so now we've got these long legs. The rib cage is moved forward away from the pelvis, so nice long spine. We're going to take the arms out. So rather than parallel, the elbows are under the shoulders, but I'm going to swing my forearms away from each other a little bit. So there's a little bit of external rotation in the shoulders. Yeah, I suggest this. If it doesn't feel great for your shoulders, keep them parallel or even turn the hands in towards each other a bit, right? So play with the different angles here of the forearms and what feels best. So I'm here, the pubic bone's going to press into the floor again, tailbone reaching back as I draw my sternum forward and up, coming into Sphinx pose. The legs are heavy, reaching back. If your toe cramps like mine just did, you can turn your toes under and give it a little stretch. Otherwise, tops of the feet are on the floor, and I'm pulling my heart through and up. Good stretch for the front body, right through the belly and through the front of the spine. Okay, very good. Lower down. And then we're going to press back into table pose. So hands on the floor, pressing into table position. From table position, child's pose. You can just take the hips back to whatever degree your knees or your hips will allow. You might even just come into a puppy stretch with the hips staying up in the air and the head dropping towards the floor. Yeah, stretching out here. Stretching the spine, stretching the sitting bones back and away from the hands. Great. Let's come forward into table pose. And for now, we're going to come back to using it, but you can just slide your blanket out of the way. And it was, well, Lisa and I have been teaching in the park on Wednesday nights. It's been so much fun teaching together. And she reminded me of this, it's called the early morning stretch. And we used to do it quite a bit back in the day. And it's a sort of a mini, it's a variation on the sun salutation, but you stay close to the ground. So we're going to move through the morning stretch, starting in table position. On an exhale, turning the pelvis under. So leading with your tailbone, it turns under, the belly button draws up into the spine, and the head drops, right? Good stretch there for the back, and the back of the pelvis. Then inhale and tip the pelvis forward and lift the head. Exhale, tuck the toes under, slide the hips back, downward facing dog pose. And you can wiggle and stretch into dog pose however you like. Right, that feels so good. Then inhale, knees to the floor. Exhale, child's pose or puppy stretch. So whatever feels best for your knees and hips. Okay, we're going to come forward into table again and go through that sequence again. Exhale, rounding the back body, dropping the head. Inhale, lifting the tailbone, lifting the head. Face is looking forward. Exhale, tuck your toes under, slide the hips back. Downward facing dog. Then inhale, and the knees come down to table. Exhale, child's pose. Nice little flow through the body, through the spine. Good. And then let's come forward into table. And from table, we're going to come to sit down on our left hip. So that this is called the deer pose. And the legs are swept to the right. So I've got my left shin in front and the right shin behind. Okay. Just gonna see how everybody's doing here. All right, good. So this is a variation of pigeon pose, which isn't so great for everybody. Pigeon pose is quite intense, and this is pigeon pose, right? When the leg is stretched back and I'm putting weight down onto that front folded knee. This is a variation of that pose, and it still gives you a really good release in the hips. So bringing your right hand onto the right hip, on an inhalation, letting that right hip roll to the left, let your belly roll to the left, and then exhale, and we draw it back down. Yeah. So rolling forward, and then rolling back down. That's all. So simple. Not a whole lot of movement or effort, and yet I think really effective in getting into the hip joint, which gets jammed. It's kind of interesting talking to my yoga teacher colleagues and how many of us, our practice is a little bit closer to the ground these days, a little subtler, slower, gentle movements, right? Maybe because, because things in our world are just kind of the opposite of that, kind of frenzied. There's a sense of anxiety and uncertainty. So we come to our practice to find a little stillness, a little spaciousness from all of that. Okay, so the next time your right hip lifts, we're turning to the left. If it's comfortable for you, for your back, to bring both hands over to the left onto the floor, we can come into this little bit of a twist. And you could imagine your belly button is reaching to the right. So as my rib cage is turning to the left, my belly button is turning to the right. So there's a nice little rotation or twist happening there in the abdominal organs. And this is looking more like pigeon pose. And if you want to go ahead, for some of you, if it feels okay, that right leg could begin to stretch back and bring you more into the pigeon kind of shape. That's optional. Okay. Then let's make our way back forward into the deer pose. But we're going to release that right leg now forward and walk that right foot in front of the left shin. Yeah. And I'm sort of moving that knee back and forth here, again, just to find some different kind of movement there in the right hip. But what I'm going to do eventually is leave it kind of in the center, and I'm going to reach my left arm up towards the ceiling, get long through the left side, get anchored down through the right sitting bone. And with that long left arm, I'm going to wrap it around my right knee and shin and bring my right arm behind me. I'm hugging that thigh towards my belly, so that as I breathe in, it's almost like there's a bit of restriction there because my thigh is in the way, which is good. The breath pressing into the thigh, into the belly. All right, let's take a deep breath in and exhale, and then slowly release. Yeah. Let's take the soles of the feet together for a moment. Find your sitting bones coming into Baddha Konasana, the butterfly. Yeah. And on an exhale, it's as though the wings turn away from each other. Inhale, and they lift a little towards each other. So exhale and drop the wings. Inhale, and they lift. Okay. From here, we'll take the legs in the other direction. So now my right shin is in front, left shin is behind. And I'm going to begin to roll that left pelvic half forward and down. Yeah, without force, right? So if that left sitting bone doesn't make it to the floor, don't force it down. Nice, smooth, gentle movements here. Yeah. So finding a little bit of kind of independence from the left pelvic half and the right pelvic half. Okay, good. And then it's up to you if you want to go into this twist. Bring both hands to the floor. And now the chest and the rib cage is turning to the right. And the belly button is stretching to the left. if it feels kind of unsafe at all, right, come out. You just roll a little bit further back onto the hip. By unsafe, I mean if it feels like there's just too much happening in the waist and in the low back, right? There might be too much rotation there for you. Just come out a little. That left leg, for some of you, might want to stretch out behind you. Great. And then let's settle back down into deer pose. We're going to take that left leg now and walk it forward. It can step forward, walk in front of the right shin. Yeah. And yeah, I like to just kind of find the lever again, the little hinge there in the hip, and take the knee a little side to side here. Different kind of movement for the hip. So the pelvis is stationary and I'm just moving the thigh back and forth. So interesting, right? And then eventually that knee is going to be looking straight up. I'm going to reach my right arm up, get long through the right side, long arm, wind it around the front of the left shin and knee. Take the left hand behind me. And we come into this twist now. So the ribs, the chest, the left lung, the left kidney are all wrapping over to the left, but my belly button's gonna, it's gonna go to the right. And then you could either look over the right shoulder or the left. You could try both. It's interesting. It's a different stretch here for the neck. If you're looking to the right, a little more of a lengthening stretch happening through the left side of the neck. Looking over the left shoulder brings you just a little bit more into rotation towards the left. Nice deep breaths. And then on an exhale, releasing, letting go, coming back to face forward. Let's come back into Baddha Konasana, butterfly. Yeah. And we exhale and drop the thighs, lift the crown of the head, lift the chest. Inhale, soften, receive. Yeah. Exhale, letting go. Inhale, nourishing all the cells with oxygen. Exhale, releasing. It's like we're purifying as we let go and release the CO2. Very good. Okay, so nice that we do have time to roll around on a ball. So we're going to come onto our back again and have your ball at hand. I'm hoping everybody did manage to find something. Depending on the density of your ball, the more dense it's going to be, a little bit more intense. So I want you to just be careful here. And we're going to be putting the ball right underneath the middle of the glutes. So right at the back of the pelvis to the side. So careful not to put the ball on the bony part. So you don't want it on your sacrum. You don't want it on your hip joint, the meaty part. And we're going to come onto our back. And let's start with the right side. So you could cross your right ankle over the left knee and then roll to the left a little and put your ball underneath the right glute. And then gauging how much pressure, how much weight to roll back onto the ball. Right? Yeah. So you'll find with the ball, it can roll around a little bit, and you might find just the right place or places that need to be kind of released, a little pressure point going into the fascia and the tissues there. And your mics are all muted, but I can imagine there might be some sounds being made because it can be shocking how much tension is here, and it can be kind of painful. So that's why to be careful. Again, not to go into onto a bony place or a place that feels like it's kind of electric, like there'll be sharp tingling. I'm going to go into the fleshy parts. And if you find a place that's particularly tense, just maybe pause there and take some breaths. Very good. Now we'll transition. So as you're ready, shift some weight back into the left side, left hip, and take the ball out. Uncross your ankle and just notice how that feels. Yeah, if anything's changed or something's different, I hope for the better. Okay, we'll do the other side. Left foot crossing over right ankle. Roll a little bit over to the right and then tuck your ball underneath there. And away you go. Whoa. Yeah. Remember to keep breathing. Sometimes when things get intense, we hold our breath. And that just causes more tension, more gripping somewhere. So our practice helps us to pay attention, to notice when we're holding something and when and if it's appropriate to let go. Yeah, so pausing maybe in a place that's particularly tight. Softening the brow, the eyes. Good. And then as you're ready, releasing, bringing some weight back into the right hip and bringing that left foot to the floor. Again, a little pausing, noticing anything's changed. And one more little final stretch here. Taking the knees and feet apart, wider than hip width, and dropping your right knee towards the floor, towards the left ankle. And it's as though you could reach that right thigh, reach it out of the pelvis away from your bottom ribs. Right? And and sometimes what's nice is a little extra pressure on that thigh. You could see what happens if you cross your left ankle over the thigh again. So I'm bringing my left foot on top of my right thigh and giving a little extra pressure there and lengthening away. And then as you're ready, sweeping back to center and dropping the knees to the right. Yeah, take care, make sure that this isn't going to aggravate that knee, the left knee. Right, so I'm reaching my left thigh out of my pelvis, away from my bottom left ribs. The waist is getting a good little stretch here, and then maybe crossing the right foot over that thigh. And taking your time to undo and making your way back to center. Bring your feet underneath your knees. One last final move before we come into relaxation. The heels right underneath the knees, the shins vertical. I'm going to inhale and press the feet into the ground to lift the hips, coming into a bridge position. Just one more nice opening here for the front of the hips. Press the feet down as the hips lift, opening up the belly, the hip flexors. Then on an exhale, it's like your air balloon is landing, slowly releasing down. And then coming into the most comfortable position for Shavasana. Stretching the legs and the arms. Giving the spine as much space as you can. And letting all this work here in the hips kind of settle, nourish. Coming back to this place of stillness and quiet. Coming back to the natural rhythm of your breath. Where there's nothing expected of us. The body knows exactly what it needs to know. This is Donna Folds. Let go of the ways you thought life would unfold, the holding of plans or dreams or expectations. Let it all go. Save your strength to swim with the tide. The choice to fight what is here before you now will only result in struggle, fear, and desperate attempts to flee from the very energy you long for. Let go. Let it all go and flow with the grace that washes through your days, whether you receive it gently or with all your quills raised to defend against invaders. Take this on faith. The mind may never find the explanations that it seeks, but you will love more. You will move forward nonetheless. Let go, and the wave's crest will carry you to unknown shores, beyond your wildest dreams or destinations. Let it all go and find the place of rest and peace and certain transformation.